Earth debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Essential Goat, Neil, Adam, Eli, Click OK. Did I miss anybody? Don't think so. And a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Yellow.
Yellow.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh,
I might not be around tomorrow. It's depending on how things go. My currently dying father, as much as a miserable way it is to open this live show. So it might be the most we make of today as opposed to tomorrow, depending on what goes on. So if you don't see me, you'll know why. We will do a bit of housekeeping, but I want this show to be relatively interactive. So what I want to do is actually put the live stream chat up and do a shout out to some of the superfans who get dubbed by Crown and Hash Number how big a superfan they are. So shout out to my one and only Divergent Droid for being Hash2 and CC for being Hash1 right there in the chat. So shout out to all of you. Also Fisherman in a Box, shout out to you. It'd be good to hear what you guys want us to do on today's show. I haven't got anything lined up in terms of reactionary videos, although I'm sure the panel will correct me if they want me to do something today specifically. I don't know if that's the case or not. We'll find out shortly. But what I do want to do is, give you guys in the audience whatever it is you desire from us here at Flat Earth Debate. So I'll keep the show chat up on screen for the majority of today's show, depending on how it goes. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, it's always the case with any of these shows. We could be joined at any moment by a live participant who just takes umbrage with the fact that we're talking about Earth being measured flat and wants to correct us because he can't quite believe that the perception of a dumb flat earther is not being upheld here. And that needs to be sorted out by joining and clicking that link. Be sure to mute your watch page if you are that person. That's all I ask. In the meantime, yeah, like I say, we will do a bit of housekeeping and then see what the audience is in need of from us as flat earthers. We'll see what we're asking us shortly. In the meantime, is there any evidence of the distance to the sun?
what is the sun, first of all?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know it behaves in a very cyclical manner. Other than that, I don't know. We use it for positional data where it's above at given times. That's quite useful. So I know certain things about where it's going to be and at what time. As for what it actually is, I don't know.
Nathan, people are using the sun to claim that it proves that the Earth is a sphere. Where have you been?
How would that be the case?
Well, they claim that there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, so that can only work on a sphere. Therefore, glob.
Take me through it. How does it work on a sphere, if it can only work on a sphere?
Well, it will be circling, right? And it can't be circling on a flat Earth. The way they show the diagram...
Stop. No. Circling is two-dimensional, right? Doing circles is flat. So no. Do you want to rephrase that? Because you can only do circles on a flat plane.
Well, I'm showing you how they held the glob, right? They were holding it, and on the right side, he was circling like his finger was the sun. And then he went on the left side and did it also. And said, this happens, and it can only happen on a sphere. Because how could this example I'm doing right now work on a flat Earth?
Asking me how something works when describing it circling, which is already disclaimed by me as only being capable of description with respect to a plane, to then say this only works on a globe. You haven't explained how it would work on a globe. I mean, why would we be assuming that anything's working on a globe? I don't really know why we're doing this exercise. But nevertheless, that's what you've postulated. So, okay, talk me through it. So far, not so good. You're talking me through how circling something will be. That's with respect to a plane. So, not so good so far, Neil.
Well, according to how they had the diagram and how they were doing the example, they were spinning the globe and they had like their finger stationary, right? So, and at certain parts where they have Antarctica is only on that part of the sphere. So now if it was a flat Earth,
Hold on, stop.
how would
So
that
I don't need
work?
the contrapositive from what you say it would be with respect to a flat plane. No, the globe that you're describing is created with respect to the motion of the luminaries with respect to a plane measured with angles. So to suggest that that reified sphere that we can't be standing on, we would be standing in the mathematics, derived from flat plane measurements of the stars with angles, won't suggest to me that there's a reifiable sphere outside edge 2 beyond to describe the heliocentric Copernican motion with, because that's with respect to the plane inside a globe, not on a globe. So you're just wrong.
The equatorial plane.
Equatorial plane, correct.
Well, I think they built it that way to deceive people because you could look at that and you could say, oh, yeah, that's right. It does only work on this specific model that they made. How would that work on a flat plane? Oh, it wouldn't, because the sun would move out of its distance. So how could there be a 24-hour? I think it was a well-devised plan.
I don't know what you're talking about. Coming up with a description of how things will work in an orbital motion after measuring Earth as a flat plane with angles to the luminaries doesn't mean that there's some grand conspiracy. It's just a way of mathematicizing those flat plane measurements into the sphericity we see on screen now, with an equatorial plane and angles with respect to your zenith as described as the North Pole in this description, with an equatorial plane and a circle around you representative of the angles that are measured with the stars to create that globe that you can't stand on, you can only stand in mathematically. That's not a grand conspiracy, that's just Copernicus's way of describing orbital motion after measuring Earth flat.
Yeah, but when they put all the continents on the freaking glob, they made it in a way where certain things will only work if it's on that glob.
No, certain things are only being described mathematically with respect to the plane of reference inside the glob that you're saying they say it could only work on, as opposed to in. Now, this is the end of that discussion in regards to whether or not we're on a globe. No, we're not, and for it to work, as you put it, it will be mathematically inside a globe. Or this is the end of this discussion, Neil.
Not for some.
Oh my God. Go on, get it all out, Neil, before I move on to a different housekeeping question.
Come on, you heard prominent flat earthers turn with this observation. Are you kidding me? I know you're not in the dark on this.
Prominent flat earthers? There aren't any prominent flat earthers. Who? Who are you talking about?
There was a guy named Jaron Scampanella.
Not a flat earther.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. All right, next question.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth we've just been describing standing within? That point that we described as being within, right? At that centre point for Copernicus. Is there any evidence that that point, mathematically described 5 minutes ago and discussed for the last 5 minutes, has a molten iron core in that position?
Yeah. How can you have a molten iron core if the Earth is flat, buddy? Huh.
You can't. But the mathematical position inside a ball Copernicus uses to describe motion called orbits is also alleged, if you reify it into an outside edge to stand on, which you can't describe orbits with respect to, you've got a self-perpetuating molten iron core at that point. It's marked here on this diagram. Here. It's where you'd be standing to get angles. Yeah? Measurements off a plane. Obviously, that's suggested to have a molten iron core. Any evidence thereof?
Earth sonograms.
With respect to a plane? Measurements with respect... That's a flat Earth measurement, Neil.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Do we do any more housekeeping questions? Nobody's asking for specific stuff from the YouTube chat. Maybe I'll reiterate it as we've got a few people watching now, 53 people watching. So, I might be absent tomorrow, might not. We'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, is there anything from the chat that people have sort of hoped that we would cover that we haven't? I'm just making this show today a little bit more audience focused. That is to say, if you're part of the live show in the chat, let me know. Is there stuff that you want us to cover? Stuff that's irritating you as a flat earther? Feel free to ask for our guidance or counsel. Not that we'd be so presumptive as to suggest that we're fantastic guidance or counsel, but we are, let's be honest. When it comes to flat earth, at least. Most other things, probably not. Hi, Brian. Good to have you.
What's up, Brian?
Hey, Nathan. Hey, Neil. Hey, everyone.
Hey, hey, hey. The regulars, says Central Gate. You're on the panel, Central Gate. You don't need to be chatting in the chat. Although, if you are encouraging some interaction from our participants, then that's fair enough, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm just showing some love to the regulars.
Did you do any gas pressure without containment yet?
You want to talk about space for a bit? What's going on in the space world? So, typically, right, I'll ask that question, and then some... Last time I did it, it was Katy Perry and travelling up with respect to a plane of reference, and us proving a flat Earth with their measurements off the surface level and things like that, right? What's going on today? Is there anything going on in space? Second law of thermodynamics violation beyond Narnia's wardrobe doors? Space? We mentioned it on yesterday's show, right? But this is a very much QE argument when we point out that you can't have gas pressure without containment. That's requiring containment to form pressure in the first instance. Well, I like flicking monotonous, but there it is. I'll flick through the shorts on YouTube, and there's a guy called Chris. I've forgotten his surname. The guy who I parodied when I was like, "There's 3 ways that you can get in touch with Nathan Oakley." That's the guy I was parodying. I don't know if anybody picked up on that. It doesn't really matter either way. But we also covered him in one of our response videos. Now, he's the guy who starts his videos with, "Want to see something cool?" And then he'll show you a gadget or gizmo that he's been working on or utilises in his daily work routine. Okay? You know what I'm talking about, first of all. It doesn't really matter if you don't. Anyone remember what I'm talking about? If I say...
I don't know who you're talking about, but I remember you doing that.
Well, this will jog your memory. If I say he wore a straight jacket and helmet with a butt plug, would that jog your memory?
No, he's too inconsequential. Sorry,
Mumble, Irish mumbles. Didn't hear a word of that.
Whoever this guy was, he certainly made no impression upon me.
He obviously didn't make a great impression. No, he didn't, clearly. Anyway, he was talking about this particular type of pump, right? And he was saying if you just turn this pump on in normal air, it would just rip itself to shreds immediately. But what it's designed to do is to be placed inside vacuum chambers so that when you've got just a couple of molecules bouncing around that are really difficult to sort of scrape up, it is turned on to grab those last few particles of gas and fire them along a little pipe and outside of the chamber, right? To scavenge, if you will, all of the last remaining gas particles when trying to evacuate a gas chamber. And it was just intriguing to me that there's people like him. We've covered him in respect to Flat Earth previously.
I know who you're talking about.
Well, thank you in the middle of the explanation about gas being evacuated with a pump, Neil. It's nice to know that you know that in the middle of me talking. Thank you. That was kind of the end anyway, really. It was just interesting that he was talking about scavenging gas particles from vacuums. I couldn't resist leaving a comment on that particular short saying, outer space is fake. Can't have gas pressure without a container. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. It's called the second law of thermodynamics. You're welcome. That was verbatim my comment to him. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. 69 people watching. Nice. Please share the show if you've not done so already. It's good to have you all here. Hopefully we're, what was it? Edutaining? Whatever the word was the other day in QE show. Edutainment. Love it.
This guy.
It's a real word.
A real category. Go ahead, Brian.
This guy you're talking about, all you're referencing is another pump inside the vacuum. You need a pump to pump out the air. That's just a separate, smaller pump that's inside the vacuum chamber that helps the pump to clear the air. You'll never get rid of all the air. It can't be done. It's a violation of the third law of thermodynamics.
The third law?
Yeah.
Sorry, remind us of the third law.
Oh. Basically, the easiest way to describe the third law is that 0 Kelvin is not possible. And you can never have perfect vacuum. That's the easiest way to describe it.
Fair enough. Awake Souls asks, Nathan Oakley 1980, how do you explain the different air pressure from sea level and the air pressure at 30,000 feet? How do I explain it? Well, I will, but the first thing I'd do, Awake Souls, if that was put to me, was ask why. I say was because it's past tense, it has happened previously. I'm not making a claim in that regard, am I? Yeah? Our housekeeping question in regards to having gas pressure without containment is a question because there's a on the table already claim that the sky is a vacuum in violation of said law, second law of thermodynamics. But me, I have no claim to make about gas. Yeah? Like I say, our overcome of a sky vacuum outer space claim is to ask how you can have gas pressure without a container. Beyond that, I don't have any positive claim to defend. If, however, you were to be putting that to me and insist that I take the burden of proof reversal fallacy being employed there, no offence to you, Awake Souls, then I would suggest that the dynamic system that we experience and were taught in school, like the water cycle, is the reason. That is to say, gas dispersion is described in your question. A high concentration of gas formed at ground level, where gases are produced, dissipating will cause a gradation of pressure as it dissipates into the already existing gas pressure. So, for example, if you had a, I don't know, methane leak somewhere, or better still, a cow passes gas, for a small period, there is a high concentration of methane gas right near that cow's asshole. But it will dissipate throughout the already existing gas pressure that we have here until it's essentially evenly spread out throughout the existing gas pressure. Now, that process of having a high amount of pressure close to the ground, because that's where all the gases are produced, versus a lower amount of pressure where there isn't any gases and the gases are in the process of either cycling or dispersing, is going to create that pressure gradient. But knowing that is a bit like knowing what forms the horizon in terms of perspective. I don't have to make any claims about it. So while I'm giving you an answer, I would also stress that it's not my or your, in this instance, responsibility to answer these questions. What's the horizon and how it's formed, as another example, like I just said? Why do I have to have the burden of explaining what forms the horizon? Oh, because there's an outstanding claim, like with space, that the horizon is the leading edge of a sphere, called Earth curve. Therefore, I have to explain what it is when we ask why it fails in geometric terms with something like the black swan. Again, I don't have to then go on to explain what forms the horizon, but if you were asking a similar question about what forms the horizon, I might have, just for the sake of completeness, explained how perspective works. But it's not my burden to fulfill, like it's not my burden to explain pressure gradients, although I can, and did. Thank you for your question.
Can I answer that question, please?
Do you mean can you? Like it hasn't just been cheeky sod. Yes, of course you can. Go ahead.
Yeah. We live in a dynamic system. All dynamic systems are closed. The sun is the cause of the gradient. The sun is like a massive spoon stirring up everything. It never allows for there to be a consistent temperature. It always creates a gradient of temperature. It's always colder as you rise, even though technically you would be getting closer to the sun if it's something you could get closer to. The sun creates that pressure gradient. If the sun wasn't there, all the gases would equalize within the container. That's why. That's why we have weather. That's why we have an average of 14.7 psi at sea level. Average, because it's not always 14.7. That's why we have different climates in different places and different pressures at different times of the year. It's down to the sun. The sun is the driving force behind all the gas cycles. All gases cycle. What people should maybe look for is the hydrogen and helium gas cycles, because it's very strange that they seem to be completely ignored as if they don't happen. But if we lived in the heliocentric paradigm, then all of the laws of thermodynamics would be void, because they would all not work.
Well, that's one of the rhetoric points from Rumpus when he used to frequent here. Second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth, end quote, the Rumpus.
Yeah, it's all down to the sun. They want to ignore it as a container. They want to ignore how you get gas pressure. Then they want to try and ignore the sun. No, it's all about the fact that we have a moving heat source that's creating heat at ground level. It's driving all the gas cycles, which cycle with the surface level, and it's creating a pressure gradient due to creating a temperature gradient.
It's more to it.
It's a moving, changing dynamic system.
Well, it's more all-encompassing when you come to the sun. It's the biggest entropy generator, as QE put it. It's the driving force of all entropy that we know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same as, like, you can take a canister and you can heat one end of the canister with gas in it, and you will get a pressure gradient in that canister. But that is still considered a closed static system because there's no moving heat source. It's just warm at one side or one end. A moving heat source, it makes it the system we're in dynamic and creates gas cycles and creates the pressure gradient due to creating a temperature gradient. We also have, you must remember, a low-grade vacuum. And this is where the ballers try to think they have an argument. No, we have a low-grade vacuum in the sky. We have temperature and we have gas pressure. You can't have those with a container. Those can't be created without a container. And in a container, all those being created at the same time requires, in the way they are in our world, requires a moving heat source, a dynamic system. What's the name of the ozone layer? That was invented to explain the accumulation of radiative radiation. I can't think of the correct term right now. We have a buildup of basically of radiation up high in the sky, and that was a heliocentric invention to try and explain how we have this. They try to say that it forms outside of this barrier, but there is no. If you actually research it, there is no ozone layer. It's a lot of rubbish. Gases don't form layers, and at the highest concentration of ozone, there is so little of it. It's like a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of ozone being created and constantly being destroyed by other gases and other elements up there. A layer, you couldn't even call it a dot. There's so little of it. So they invented the ozone layer because we have a buildup of radiation up high in the sky. But that's due to the sun as well. I won't go into too much more, but it all comes back to the sun.
A buildup
if you want to know how this works,
buildup of radiation, like the sun.
Sorry? Say that again.
Radiation, as in to radiate. What, like the sun?
Yeah, exactly. The sun is
A build-up of
creates
sun. The sun's on a cycle. So to say there's been a build-up of radiation in the sky is an absurd notion when the entropy generator we describe as the sun is cyclical in nature.
Yeah, but there's still a build-up of radiation. That still exists, and that was the thing they were trying to deal with. How do you have a build-up of radiation without a solid container?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Planar reality
There's more,
says...
I can add a
go
little
on.
more to it, but I'm not going into it.
Got a question. Hey, Nathan, can you talk about the upward vector of Earth that is provable with demonstrations manipulating buoyancy in any vector? Force is an antecedent to buoyancy. Okay.
Seems to me that somebody never figured out how a wave scales work.
I mean, when you say Earth has an upward vector, no, it doesn't. And in terms of saying there is a demonstrable directionality when describing vectors at all is also incorrect. Various different states of matter in various different mediums will behave in various different ways. Now, sometimes you can describe that vector as up, sometimes down, sometimes sideways if you think of water spreading out. Yeah? But this description of having Earth with a vector? No. Unless someone demonstrates it to me, I'm not going to accept that. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. A weighing scales within the paradigm that's being claimed here, weight does not exist. It's only apparent. What we would call weight in air does not exist within that paradigm. Things aren't going down. The Earth is, they appear to be going down because the Earth is coming up to meet them, right? That means nothing has any weight, right? That means if you place something on a weighing scales, it'll weigh zero. If you place, no matter what it is, whether it be a pebble or a car, it'll weigh zero because it doesn't have weight, because weight is only apparent within that paradigm. Or weighing scales debunks that paradigm outright. There is no if, buts, nor maybes. What I've heard from them is, no, it has mass, right? It's like whatever the hell mass is. That doesn't mean anything, whatever you want to claim the car or the pebble or anything else has. It doesn't have weight. Weight is a linear downward vector force. That doesn't exist within that paradigm. There's an upward vector force that gives us within that paradigm, that gives us the impression that there's a downward vector force that we call weight. Weight doesn't exist, but for a weighing scales to work, you need a down force. It doesn't work with an up force. Like okay. I've also heard, just 1 second, I've also heard from them because I've dealt with them. No, it's the upward force, right? And the mass of the car or the mass of the pedal, no. That the car and the pedal have no weight. So there's no inertia. So if the Earth was moving up the way, a car or a pedal placed on the same weighing scales would read zero. Because there's nothing like the only force is up. There's no inertia. The car has no weight, so it doesn't have inertia. If it doesn't have inertia, then there's no resistance to acceleration. Then that means it's lighter than that would be like an upward moving rocket hitting a balloon. It'd be even less than that because a balloon would have, with air-filled balloon would have some kind of inertia, a tiny amount in air, in the medium of air. But a rocket hitting it would blow it out of it. There'd be no effect whatsoever. But the scenario they're promoting would be even less than that. The car, your average car, would have less inertia. They have zero inertia, but as a visual, it would be less than an air-filled balloon. So no, weighing scales require a downforce. You've been duped by lawyers.
TKD Adam says, I think Brian needs to buy one of Nathan's microphones to sound clearer. I've put an open invite out only today. Brian may not be aware, but if he does want a microphone, he can have one for free. He just has to say, I want a microphone, and I'll send him one. Adam, but he may not want one, he may not care, but the open invitation has been offered out to all of my panel members. If anybody of you on the panel want a microphone, just let me know, give me a nod. I've got a couple spare, got about 80 microphones for sale. I'm sure I can extract one of them from my stock and send them to Brian if he asks. Now, I'm not going to suggest that he wants one. He might not. Anyway, move on to Awake Souls again. He says, Nathan Oakley, 1980. Can 3 observers on a plane triangulate the sun and get a distance to the sun measurement? No. Is the simple answer to that question, Awake Souls. The sun moves with respect to your, if you want to call it this, I object, but if you want to call it this, perspective view of the sun. That's to say, when it reaches 1 degree, with respect to the plane that you're asking about, fair enough, you're measuring it with respect to a plane. I'm glad you acknowledge that. I don't have to go over it. But is it about to crash into the horizon when it's at 1 degree? No, is the answer.
Yeah, we can't. The celestial bodies appear to rise as you rise. So you get the same angle to the sun off of sea level as you will from an airplane at the same time, over the same position, the same GP position. That's why. You can't measure a height of the celestial bodies. You'd have to know what the sun's height is at 90 degrees from you. And it's impossible to know that. Because not only can you not measure a 90-degree height directly above your head, right? But the sun doesn't mean anything because from an airplane or wherever else it'll be saying, you can't measure a height to the sun. It can't be done. The sun and the celestial bodies are just mysteries. There's no way. How do you measure that? How do I measure the height? If I was trying to measure the height of the top of a mountain, but as I rise, the mountain rises up with me. How can I measure the top of it?
You can't.
How are you going to get an actual? You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, though, because it is alleged to be measured with various different methodologies that are heliocentric, when in reality they're assertions that take the angle measurements of the sun and apply them to a heliocentric motion will never develop a distance. Now, you can extract it by scale. They currently use the transit of Venus to give us the scale, to give us things like the distance of the sun at 93 million miles. Well, you know, utilisation of flat plane measurements to create a heliocentric world with orbital motions that you can scale with one of the lights moving in front of the other lights, if you assume Venus has the same radius as Earth. In that scaled model, you can then dictate how far it is when you have the transit of Venus. And with said motion, you can dictate that you can have a 93 million mile sun. But that doesn't mean anything. It's a complete bastardisation of the flat Earth measurement in the first place. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you can't put yourself on the sphere when describing orbital motion. You're inside it. So what are you going to give me? The distance to the sun from the centre of a sphere you're not in? Or pretend that you're doing it from the outside edge that you can't be on? It's a nonsense. And it's scaled using assumptions. Assumptions that Earth is capable of being described as a sphere in motion on a plane moving around the sun to begin with. Heliocentric, obviously, what we're fighting against on Flat Earth debate on a daily basis. But that motion has originated in measurements, angle measurements to the stars and the sun on a plane. That's how heliocentrism's created. You can't have the heliocentric worldview to scale for them unless you measure Earth flat first. For us, we acknowledge that we cannot give you a distance to the sun, and for the reasons we've already disclosed and Brian's elaborated on. This is quite good. I'm glad I've got some interaction from the live chat. Where does the sun go at night? Over there, Flame Girl. For me, just over there. Do I need to be on camera? It's over there. At night. Sure, she asked another question. Oh, it was kind of question asking. And the moon and sun always look round from wherever you are. Only one shape can do that. What? I mean, the moon and sun looking round, Flame Girl. I don't really understand what bearing that has on anything. But I'll agree. I mean, yeah, the sun and moon do kind of look round. I'll even give you spherical with libration. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, there seems to be people in the chat there who have pre-assumptions of what the moon and the sun are. Asking questions like, saying things like, the moon and the sun always look round. They can only look that way due to one shape. I know exactly what you're saying. And that means that you're pre-assuming to know what the sun and the moon are. You don't. Nobody does. You're an idiot.
But we know how we measure it. We measure the sun and moon with angles with respect to a plane of reference. Very basic stuff. Earth's measured flat always when we talk about the sun and the moon and the stars. They're what create the maps. They're how we chart the world and navigate the world. That's how it gets done. Yeah, thank you very much, all of you in the live stream chat. As I say, we're having a bit more of an interactive day today. I'll put the live stream chat back up on screen. If there was anything you wanted us to cover on Flat Earth Debate today, feel free. Either, as is always the case, you can join the stream via the link that's below us, below you watching this stream in the information box. Alternatively, I should really ask the Discord, was there anything the guys in the Discord wanted us to cover today? Feel free. Pipe up if you must.
I just wanted to say, that lady with that comment reminded me of somebody refusing to get on the train because it appears as though the train tracks are converging, so the train's going to crash.
Awake Soul says, at Nathan Oakley, with regards to airplanes flying at night, do you acknowledge that the stars are no longer seen at altitudes above 32,000 feet? No, I've seen stars when on a plane at night. I don't know why you would think that. I mean, you're kind of making me second guess that I've seen that now because you've asked. But no, I'm pretty sure I've seen stars from a plane.
No, Dwayne Kellen has seen stars at night with his high altitude balloons.
I could be imagining that. I'm second guessing myself now because I'm just trying to think back. Obviously, when it's night time and you're on a plane, you're normally quite tired. But I vaguely remember seeing stars, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been on a plane. Sorry. Last time I went on a plane was on my honeymoon, and prior to that, yes, I was on planes quite a lot. But the fact that you're asking makes me second guess myself. Sorry. Go ahead, Brian, sorry.
I'm just saying, as far as I know, Dwayne Kellum, who used to do all the high altitude balloon footage or balloon demonstrations, when he sent them up in the night time, I'm pretty sure he picked them up, stars from high altitude. But that's my memory, and I remember Eli saying that happened as well, and Eli shared one of his videos one day. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can see them. But I don't know. I don't know what they are, so maybe you can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's more the significance that I'd want to know. Obviously, it's interesting either way, but how does it have a bearing on the discussion is kind of more what I would ask you in return. It's like, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, you can't see them, and then what? You're welcome to join, by the way, Awake Souls. I don't know why you just join the Discord server. You can ask us verbally. Same goes for Flame Girl. Feel free to join if you wanted to. You can put these things to us verbally. Gravity is an attraction between two masses. Well, that's one way to demonstrate that you don't have anything beyond a high school education of gravity, I'm afraid, Flame Girl. So, I mean, spewing this sort of stuff in my chat's probably not going to do you any favours, because no, that idea that there's a force between two masses was superseded by Einsteinian bent pseudo-Riemannian space-time geometry 110 years ago. Now, they do still teach mass attracting mass to high school kids, like yourself, Flame Girl. I'm not saying you're a kid, but that's the level of education you received. Yeah? Now, if you're saying masses attract to mass, really? So gases combine, do they, in the air? No, you've got gases that have elastic collisions. If you understand how gases behave, gases in your world, if you're going to describe mass, have mass, yeah? But gases aren't attracted to each other, quite the contrary. If they encounter each other, they bounce off. It's called elastic collisions. That's how gases behave. So no, you don't have mass attracting mass, or gases would be clumping together, contrary to what they actually do, Flame Girl. Now, you can tell my chat that mass is attracted to mass because you don't have beyond a high school education of gravity, but we can correct you and point out that it's a pseudo-geometry being bent in Einstein's now superseded gravity from 110 years ago. So you might want to keep your trap shut in my chat there, Flame Girl, because you're kind of looking a bit stupid. Ignorant would be the better word.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to add something. First of all, on the gases issue, no, gases even within their paradigm can't have mass, because whatever the hell mass is, because the mass requires something to have inertia. Gases do not have inertia. They don't have any resistance to acceleration. They're constantly accelerating. They have zero resistance to acceleration. So gases wouldn't even that fact alone destroys heliocentrism. But secondly, maybe she needs to check out and see if Isaac Newton agrees with her, because Isaac Newton doesn't. Really, his original Latin publication of his Principia Mathematica. See if he claims that gravity is a force of attraction between masses.
No, well,
the word mass, the word mass, in her understanding of it, which is an undefined heap of rubbish, doesn't even exist in his Principia.
He said to him it would be such a great absurdity that the mass.
Well, there's also that came out several years later. He letter to Dr. Richard Bentley. Go on, Nathan. Sorry.
I was just going to Awake Souls actually answered my question, so I was like, what's the relevance of not seeing the stars as you go higher up? And I second guessed whether or not I could, because I suggested that you could. Either way, he answers at Nathan Oakley 1980. In the heliocentric model, you would expect to see the stars be brighter the higher you go, especially as you get above the clouds and away from the light pollution. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, yes. I see why you'd be suggesting it now. So in terms of a heliocentric debunk, if the brightly burning balls of gas in a sky vacuum that violates the second law was to be believed, then it would naturally follow that as you got closer to them, further away from the light pollution, they would become brighter in intensity, as opposed to part of the rhetoric that we're second guessing, though, is disappear. Now, I don't know either way, so it's less strengthened by the fact that I can't bleeding remember. But other than that, yeah, I see why you've asked the question now. Thank you.
What model?
The heliocentric model, which you can only be in, not on. He's just answering me. Don't hold him to task on something that he's explaining why he's asked the question. That's why.
Holding you to task.
Holding me to task? Why? Because I've entertained the idea that there's a heliocentric model we don't have. Well, my bad. Sorry, Neil. I do apologise. I can only take that back. There is no heliocentric model.
And you said it was superseded by Einstein. No, they were married and they're both joined. Newton and Einstein. They use them together now, like a couple.
No, they're in completely different geometries.
That's completely incorrect.
No, that's completely incorrect. They're in different geometries. You can't have Newtonian. There is no fourth dimension in Newtonian geometry. Show me the fourth dimension in Newtonian geometry. Go.
Well, I need a rocket.
No. There is no fourth dimension in Newtonian gravity. Full stop. End of discussion. They're completely different geometries. They're not married. You're having a laugh.
That's what I was told. That they use them together. They could,
No.
In other words,
Say
Einstein bounces
no.
off Newton.
Totally different geometries. One is Euclidean three-dimensional. The other is pseudo-Riemannian fourth-dimensional. The two cannot coexist. They're different dimensions. I'm not going to say it again.
You can, Nathan, because you can use a bed sheet as the dimension of time as a representation.
Exactly. It's been demonstrated, Nathan. Demonstration.
No. Number one, let me address that. Number one, that bedsheet demonstration is not an attempt to shoehorn a fourth dimension into Newtonian gravity. That is a depiction by an Einsteinian demonstration of the fourth dimension, which you can't visualize because it's space-time. So to create a visualization where there is no dimension to reify, it's mathematics, they drag out a bedsheet and throw a couple of balls on it. But that's not to transpose third-dimensional Euclidean Newtonian geometry into fourth-dimensional pseudo-Riemannian. That is not what the bedsheet's for. You're just wrong.
And the bedsheet is an incorrect demonstration of general and special and general relativity.
Yeah.
That is not. That is wrong. The whole thing is completely wrong.
Unless you want
Neil, if you go on, sorry.
Unless you want me to believe that a bedsheet. unless you want me to believe that a bleeding bedsheet space-time, it's not. It exists very much in the physical realm of length, breadth and depth, being dragged out, and is not a time-dilating medium we call the fourth dimension in Einstein maths. As Brian correctly points out, that is not, I'll say again, not a fourth-dimensional bedsheet, just to be clear.
They clear all that up by calling it the fabric of space-time, so therefore bedsheet. Duh.
Hold on, it's being taught in schools. It's shown as a demonstration. So the schools are wrong now.
It's not shown in schools. That's incorrect. That's wrong too. No, that's wrong. You've seen a video and you've assumed that it's teaching school kids. No, that's wrong. In school, you will only learn, up until a high school level, Newtonian mass attracting mass. That's where this began. Flame Girl in the chat was telling my chat that mass attracts mass. On the contrary. But that's what you'll get taught so that you don't realise that the moon landing's bunk. Right, Brian?
Exactly. Because in the footage from the moon landing and all space footage after that from any space agency, whether it be SpaceX with Katy Perry or anything, they're trying to display that the people are changing in their weight. So the astronauts have 1/6 of their weight on the moon that they have on Earth. But that is Newtonian, not actually incorrectly called Newtonian mass attracting mass, right? That is not Einsteinian special and general relativity, right? That turned up 54 years before 1969. So 54 years beforehand, all of what they're trying to display in their moon landing footage and everything else was thrown out the window by Albert Einstein. And eventually everyone agreed long before 1969. But they can't show you special and general relativity with astronauts on the moon because there's no way to display what that nonsense would look like.
They drop a hammer.
They went back to the old. They went back to the old and busted. Yeah.
Yeah, they drop a freaking hammer. They go out of their way on the bullshit stage that they claimed was the moon to drop a freaking hammer and tell you it's gravity. They're telling you it's Newtonian gravity because the red tape and bureaucracy didn't catch up, as Brian points out, with the 60-year, in effect, bent space-time that they had currently. That's present tense when going to the alleged moon surface. Actually a sound stage. Now, the red tape got in the way and they just went with the old and busted, as Brian put it. Chocolate shout out to him.
My turn.
Okay.
My turn. A common classroom demonstration of space-time uses a sheet stretched across a table and objects within different masses. So don't tell me it's not shown in schools.
It's not.
Okay,
It's not.
I have a question
That's
for
right.
that.
Both me and my Brian, you can hear the disdain in both our tone at the same time. Just because it says in your reference that they'll teach it in schools does not mean that it is. It isn't. You only get taught Einsteinian bent pseudo-Riemannian space-time geometry in higher education, not at a high school level. So it might be in a classroom, but it certainly isn't in a high school classroom. It might be in a further education classroom. That would be to say college, what we call college or you call university in the States.
I'm going to pull one out from a high school in the States.
Hang on, Neil.
And then you're going to eat your hat.
Let me ask you a question.
Can I?
When they put the bowling ball or the basketball in the center of the sheet and they put a tennis ball on the outside, does the tennis ball roll towards the basketball in the center?
Just say yes.
Are you right?
Bloody hell.
Are you asking who?
Just say yes.
I'm asking you.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just pulling up what it says in the schooling system.
Yeah, of course it does. What are you talking about?
In that demonstration, the tennis ball will roll towards the center where the basketball is. Because the basketball is bigger and pushing down on the center of more weight, pushing down on the center of the sheet, right? So the tennis ball rolls towards it. That's not general relativity. In general relativity, right, the only part of that sheet that's bent is where the tennis ball is and where the basketball is. In between both those points, it is a horizontal. Right. So that is not a demonstration of special and general relativity. That is a heap of nonsense. How many more times do we have to tell you?
All right. So it says the heavier objects create a larger dent or dip in the sheet, illustrating how massive objects warp space-time, causing nearby objects to follow curved paths, Brian, not straight.
Nah, they don't understand special relativity. Special relativity means the space is a straight line. It's flat, right?
All right.
The center of this within general relativity, the center of the globe Earth and the center of the sun are in direct alignment to each other, and the same with everything else. The sun is not.
Just one sec. Just one sec. Sorry, Brian. Right, got RJ Shine who wants to ask Mick about the latitude system getting smaller south of the equator as well as north of the equator, and we've got Sargent in the chat now. Given that he's actually on the panel, Sargent, you get priority. Go ahead, ask your question. Yeah, you at the bottom. Yes.
Me? Shit.
Yes, Sasha, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, that demonstration showing the sheet, people and sheet, and they're throwing the balls, and all balls are going to the center. That's not how heliocentric model works. You have a balls what are they are orbiting in a way what they are orbiting. That is not presentation of anything. That you have the sheet. If you do that in 3D world with the sheet, that will happen. That's what is happening. The balls will go to the center, of course. That means if you have that, if it's that demonstration, that means we will crash our, let's say we will crash everywhere in the space if they want to present like that.
That's a fair point.
But that's only,
Sasha, you're saying what they show you isn't representative of either a fourth dimensional space-time Brian talked about a moment on an asymptotically flat plane between the warping of space-time when describing it fourth dimensionally in Einstein's maths. But also, it's not heliocentric either. That is to say, when they do that parlour trick of grabbing a sheet and chucking a ball on it, it is next to meaningless. That's your point, right, Sasha?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Completely. It is nonsense.
That's
it doesn't prove or show anything.
You use material. You use the material. In this sense, it's a sheet. It's a how to say less or less dense, and then the ball will press the sheet, of course, and it will only show the demonstration of physicality of the material or whatever.
Yeah,
and it will go to the. Of course, it will
hold
go
on.
to the
As
center
it's been summarised from the chat, CC has summarised it from the chat. 3D demonstration to show a fourth dimension laughy face. Precisely. Couldn't have summed it better myself, CC.
No. Orbiting objects are rolling a smaller object like a marble around the heavier object on the sheet will show it following a curved path, illustrating how objects orbit celestial bodies due to the warping of space-time.
Yes,
no,
correct.
Neil.
That's what. Yes, that's what they'll say, and that will be the description next to it. Sasha's point is that's not what will happen. They'll just go to the middle, as we've seen.
No, because you're not accounting
is
for
it
the
that orbital
gravitational
motion
field created
around
by
the
a
sun?
mass.
That's what that ball's doing in a demonstration. Is that behavior of the Mars, Jupiter,
I don't know who's
Saturn?
Neil, but this is something I don't know what's going on with you. No, Neil, you use the word weight. Weight does not exist in Einstein's general special or general relativity. Weight has no implication whatsoever.
All I'm making a
Within
point
that
is Nathan
demonstration,
saying that
weight
it's not.
does have an implication. Within that demonstration, weight does have implications.
My beef is not.
Weight
with
has
you.
nothing to do with special and general relativity. So that demonstration is not a demonstration of space-time and the curving of it.
My beef is not with you. I agree. It's with Nathan with saying that it's not taught in the schooling system. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Einsteinian gravity does not get taught to high school kids.
It does here.
No, it does not. You get taught you don't get taught Einstein until higher education. You get taught mass attracts mass. You get taught Newtonian gravity. Just check out Flame Girl. If you don't believe me, why? Okay, well, why is
updated the curriculum though? Right? I mean, that's always possible.
No.
What in high school here?
To clear it up.
Go on then.
Go, Adam.
So only in the UK, I didn't think it was, so I asked Grok. Does GCSE physics teach bending space-time? Yeah, physics does not explicitly teach bending space-time as the concept of space-time and its curvature, central to Einstein's general theory of relativity, is the advance for GCSE level. Instead, the curriculum focused on foundational physics, such as forces like Newton's laws, gravity as a force. That answers it.
Okay, thank you, Adam. That's just here. He's talking about GCSE, so it could be that I stand corrected. I will eat humble pie if it's wrong in the States, and you do get taught bending space-time, but I'm pretty sure it'll be the same as us. You take your educational cues from us. So,
sorry, Nathan. If they're showing that demonstration, then they're not teaching special and general relativity. That's not special and general relativity. So anyone that's showing you that demonstration is not teaching you special and general relativity.
Yeah, if they're teaching about that, they will not. You will have 90% of people speaking, "Oh, things falling down." They will speak about the general relativity in the second, immediately. Einstein, come on, yeah, I learned in high school. Of course. They never will. Nobody will speaking about the apple and falling and Newton. Nothing, zero. But no, we have opposite.
I want to address R.J. Shine's question more than I do this. No offense to the heliocentrists intrigued by gravity, and I didn't just go, "You'll need a flat plane for it," so I'm hoping Brian's satisfied with my responses thus far. But R.J. Shine is saying, at Nathan Oakley, on a flat plane, can anyone explain navigating using the coordinate system with regards to the latitudes getting smaller north and south of the equator? Question mark. Can I explain it? No, that's how it's alleged to work. It seems pretty damn accurate in the north.
No, that's incorrect.
Go ahead, Brian.
That's incorrect.
System onto a globe. But when you're doing navigation, no, they don't. Hence, the time goes back to time bandits. Brian's mentioned one thing there, the simple one, the time differentials for those same distances, North and South Australia and the main North America, but also the different time zones in the South. The addition of a half-hour time zone that's as big as the full hour to try and mitigate for this, to try and pretend that they're not continuing to diverge by sticking in additional time zones. That's how it's then transposed to look onto a ball. Yeah, but they don't fundamentally, hence the discrepancies in time zones in the South.
Thank you, gentlemen. Excellent. Very well-rounded answers we're getting. Fantastic
There was
stuff.
another one. I posted a video for you because it was something I looked at. Do you see stars at night? Well, I always thought no until I've sent you the video. It's further up in the chat, and it's quite an old one. But the majority of the high-altitude balloons are taken during the day, so the sun's in the sky, right? So you don't see stars when the sun's in the sky. But there are a few high-altitude balloon footages which are done at night, and the one I've sent you, I think, should demonstrate you do see stars.
Trying to find it. I saw it go by, and I should have clicked it when I saw it. Now I can't find it in the sea of chats.
I'll find it again, and I'll...
That's all right. I'm sure I'll be able to find it. I'll just scroll up one more time.
Yeah.
But this is in regards to whether or not we can see the stars at night from altitude, correct?
Yeah, and I don't have a definitive answer, but it is stuff I've looked, and if you search YouTube, you'll see that there are ones. But I say the majority of higher altitude stuff is taken during the day.
I got it.
But there are a few at night. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I think so.
It's hard to see how much you can see the stars. It's so sunny here. I couldn't see my screen properly. So it's hard to, but there's quite a few, and I have seen them in the past. So
is this just somebody shoving Is this somebody shoving their camera up to a plane window, right?
No, this is a high altitude balloon, so even higher than the plane, so even less pollution and blockage.
Oh, okay,
So-
yes, and it's showing. I got you now. I've scrubbed forwards to where it's obviously at reasonably high altitude, and yes, you can see that's how I remember it from the plane window. To be honest, just like this, it wasn't spectacularly bright, like was being suggested on the heliocentric version of our reality once you're above the cloud line, which this does seem to be. They're just like this, right? They're not particularly bright. But this definitely is my recollection of what I would say I saw from plane windows when travelling as a rep at night. You see the stars and it's kind of nothingy. You're like, yeah, that kind of looks like it you'd expect it to look. Okay, cool. Thank you, Adam. Perfect.
I think Awake Soul's points, though, still kind of stands because he's correct that within heliocentrism, as you guys, they really should stand out more. Like within that paradigm, they would. The further away from the surface of the sphere you get, the brighter they should get.
You mean like somewhere like on the moon? You would think.
Yeah.
You know, Awake Souls and is it Ronnie, the other guy I was responding to a minute ago? I've forgotten what he's called. RJ Shine, he's going by in this chat, right? Those two, who I don't pay a great deal of attention to, no offence to them, were, correct me if I'm wrong, condemned by the now exposed as a shill for the Globe, Ger and Campanella, were they not? That, to me, makes me want to pay more attention now in the aftermath of TFE to Awake Souls and Ronnie, because they're probably just normal dudes like us. And when Jaron's turning around and giving them the same both barrels of disinformation about not watching them, like he would do to us, that makes me think they're caught in the midst of the censorship and probably shoved to the bottom of the lists the same as we are. Am I wrong? I don't know enough about them. Maybe they're incredibly nefarious and you're about to go, shut up, don't talk about those two, crazy nutters. I don't know them that well. I mean, I know they are, but you know what I mean?
Is that the same Awake Souls from way back in the day? Because I remember that name.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's OG. Both of these guys are OG.
The issue why we would take issue with some of the things they said would be they suggest maps. They suggest Pac-Man maps based on esoteric.
I don't know. I remember them suggesting Pac-Man maps 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think that's changed, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, really? Bummer. Okay. But then again, you know, people having an allegiance to a model or a map for whatever reason doesn't necessarily point them to being shilly like Jaron. Would you agree with that? Which is wrong.
Oh yeah, and they were attacked by Jaron and that side, but they did plenty of attacking themselves. You know what I mean? They're no shrinking violets, them guys.
That's right.
That doesn't make them shilly either. I'm just, in the aftermath of TFE,
No, so...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, no. So if that's where you're heading, no. Now, do I agree with them? No. Have I ever thought that they're working for the other side? No. I just don't agree with their viewpoint and how they try to get to an understanding.
Yeah. That's notwithstanding. I totally agree, and I'm not divulging my own position in that regard at this stage. I'm just saying, when the dust settles after something like TFE, which was, as much as I hate to admit it, more influential than I cared to believe at the time, right? As much as I want to say it with gritted teeth. But after that, which we're in now, we're in the aftermath, you suddenly stop and go, who's around me? Yeah? Who's got their head well and truly above the precipice, or whatever the words are? You know what I mean? You go, who's around? And then when you see someone like Ronnie and... I forgot the other guy's name, Awake Souls. What's his name? I want to say Reggie because of the craze, but it's obviously
the craze.
Yeah, exactly. It isn't. It's Jason. It's Jason and Ronnie, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, guys. Anyway, the point being, you suddenly go, okay, yeah, I know we don't agree with them on various different things, but they're not showing any signs of being complete shills, right? And there's plenty of people who are. So you go, okay, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Jason is his name.
Give them time.
Jason. There we go. Good.
Give them time. They all seem to just show their true colors.
Yeah, well, that's the point I'm making. I would never have agreed with them. I've never really had any beef with them. I've just kind of moved on from their opinion. Yeah, it's very Orwellian. Yeah, which, you know, it's fine for people to hold. But as Nathan says, it's interesting. What happened after TFA? Did they disappear? No. Like us, they carried on, stood up, made sure that people were still on a flat Earth. Now, what they describe it as, like I said, I disagree with, but fair play to them, mate. They're not. I wouldn't put them in that bracket.
Yeah. Well,
Flip floppers.
but just by contrast, right? If we were talking about Dave Weiss now, I'd be screaming blueface, wouldn't I? Whereas I'm actually responding to these guys in the chat and kind of, you're like, okay, you just dudes. Now, we may not agree on maps and models, and that's a different issue. It's just like I say, you do kind of assess your surroundings and who's around you and go, who's causing us trouble? Dave Weiss. That's why he frustrates me, and I scream till I'm blue in the face about ostracizing people like that from your life, right? Am I screaming till I'm blue in the face about Jason? No. Is he causing us any problems? No. Do we disagree? Yeah, of course. I disagree with you. You know what I mean? So, from that point of view, who cares? That's kind of what makes life a bit more interesting. But they're not proactively causing us detriment, are they? So you go, okay, hello over there, how's it going? As opposed to, this guy, keep away from him. It's just a very different attitude. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's going to be others out there that are similar, right? Let's just go off Jason and Ronnie for a second, right? That are going to be, let's say, for instance, people who are upward rising earthers. Someone put that in the chat earlier. This is kind of why I'm coming to the end of the live show and I'm summarising why I wanted the audience participation and interaction. Like I've just described, I'm assessing who's around us, right? The shills have made themselves pretty clear, I would say. Now, it's taken me 10 years to be comfortable pointing fingers and calling people shills. Up until now, I've been really vehemently against it, and I would tell people off for doing it. Now, I'm quite openly doing it, aren't I? Now, you might ask, well, why the stark contrast? Well, because you can assess your environment after an explosion, in the most crude terms. Now the dust has settled, the smoke has cleared, and you go, who's still alive? Oh, you are? Oh, okay. And then you look, and who's running with the tail between their legs, looking like they lit the fuse? You can see them too, yeah? That's where we're at.
Is it tears, Neil? Yeah, we're at that point. Harvest has come. It's time to rip out the weeds. And
I agree.
like I say, yeah, it's a bit. TFE brought not the observation itself, but where you had to make a stand. That's why it was very telling. That's why it was useful, because it was harvest time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was to see who the weeds and let's separate.
Right, the weeds and the tares, they grew together, the wheat and the tares. Now it's time to rip them out.
Yeah, so, for example, where...
Quite a nice...
Go ahead, sorry.
Only just to finish it, it is a nice power, because Jesus says, why not pull out the tears early? Because you might damage. Yeah.
The wheat,
That's
exactly.
kind of what happened in the community. Yeah. Wait till everybody's fully matured, then separate them. And that's kind of what's happened, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, it might be that you don't like the look of their flowers. It doesn't matter. They're not weeds. They're not causing cracks in the pavement. And while we might disagree with Ronnie or Jason in regards to a map or a model, I'm sure if we were to sit down around a table and talk about a bit of science and the scientific method, there'd be no grievances, there'd be no fallouts. It'd just be matter of fact. I'm like, yeah, no worries. And you just move past it quickly. Whereas with people like Dave Weiss, when the same thing occurred, they were making a stand against that, which was defeating ballers. Totally different attitude that wouldn't be expected of somebody who's on your side. Like you say, the weeds have shown themselves.
No, not weeds. It's the wheat and the tares grow together.
The wheat. Yeah, the weed.
Not weeds.
Yeah, but that's the weed. The tear is the weed. Yeah. But,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm mixing metaphors. My bad.
the wheat and the tears. Yeah. But that is the point. And, you know, as we are standing here right now and there's these issues, and Ronnie's here, somebody who's been around in that 10-year bracket, yeah? Well, like I said, I know the distinctions between us, but I'd put an olive branch out to you guys. Not let's discuss, but come and refine your argument with us, right? Don't worry about the models. Just make sure you can prove that the Earth is flat. And we'll help you with that, and we'd love to.
Yeah, and not rising up. I heard a Delite in here before.
Yeah, that's where I was going
in
next.
The shower.
That's where I was going next. It doesn't matter, right? The fact that there's going to be people that have got these fringe beliefs but have found their way here, right? Just know that everyone's covered in the same soot. You know what I mean? It's that moment where you go, okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay. Let's not argue necessarily about our differences here, because the people who are around us at this very moment, there's almost 100 people watching. Very poignant point of the show, where we're suggesting that, no, okay, yeah, we're going to have differences. But this is the real formation of what was previously called the community of Flat Earth. Now, those people who are corralled into little corners with Jaron to be disbanded in Home Depot Earth style are being disbanded. So you do assess who's around you and go, okay, fair enough. I don't think you're my enemy. Doesn't matter that you see things differently. It doesn't matter that you think Earth's rising up because you've heard that shite, no offence, from somewhere else. We'll put that aside temporarily. Who cares? We're all covered in the same soot. Do we all know Earth's measured flat? We do? Oh, well, let's start there. The rest can wait. It doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things, does it? Yeah?
It does matter. It does
I don't
matter.
know.
It matters
I have to
later.
consult with hold on. I have to consult with Brian. I think it does matter, Brian. What do you say?
Oh, here we go.
Absolutely, it matters. I have no personal issue with these people at all, right? I don't have any personal problem with the people. But when something is wrong, it's wrong. For the upward rising Earth, for instance, the whole of aviation has to change for that to be a reality. They don't even think about that. You know what I mean? So
Never mind the planes.
Just saying, one of the main
point, Brian. I get your point. I know what you're saying. There's this distinction here. As I tried to, I don't think for 1 second that people with that's not the olive branch that's being offered. Come and argue upward rising Earth. You know you're going to get your ass handed to you. You're going to invoke a force, a need for something yeah. That's still standing. That's not what the olive branch is. We're saying we've got the best arguments, not the most outlandish theoretical considerations. We don't do that over here, but we have got the best arguments, and that door's open. Don't come in and talk about upward rising Earth to me, but come and ask me, how do you prove Earth's flat?
Exactly.
And then you'll get a warm welcome, and you'll be sat down and educated, not in a patronising way, but helped, so that your argumentation is solid moving forwards.
Because we don't.
Yeah, but you're missing the point.
You're saying that that's a problem in the wings that's going to manifest, right, Brian? And I get that, but I'm saying right here, right now, for the people who aren't actively working against us, literally, their raison d'etre is to make our cause more difficult. The people who aren't necessarily that way inclined, they've just got some crazy belief that could potentially mess things up if they become a dick about it. That's different. That's just people. And I'm saying that the people around us, we're using Jason and Ronnie as the example in this case. And I started with them because I'm thinking, hang on, weren't they mentioned by Jaron, the shill, as don't watch them? You're like, that makes me go ding, 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 ding. Maybe I should look at them more closely. Forget that they disagree with us on maps and models and say, where do we align, right? Because you're not actively trying to screw me over. You're not actively battling against me when it comes to the facts of science and things like that, like Dave and Jaron were. So you go, oh, okay, well, I reckon this would be a lot easier to work with someone like that than to work, as we've tried, or I certainly have, to work with the shills of this community that have now exposed themselves. Like I say, I'm assessing who's around me.
when and if and when that topic did then come up, maybe we'd have some common ground to help educate them as to why it's so freaking ridiculous to make such a suggestion. We're not there and we're not engaging. I don't think we can. And then I think they're not really helpful to us. We've then got to deal with that argument like we did with. But if at this moment, this guy's turned up in the chat.
You said the same thing about Ether. No, you said the same thing about Ether and all these other things, and then they read it, and it was all of them against us, and we were backed into a corner and had to come out fighting.
Yeah, you're correct. Let's acknowledge Neil's concerns. You're correct, right? But that's for the guy like Dell or the guy like Jaren, where there's somebody utilising something. Now you're saying, okay, in this case it's upward rising Earth or Ether, and you're correct. They've been used to leverage communities and corral communities, and you're not wrong. But you can spot that in individuals like Dell and Jaren when they're actively working against you. And I'm saying that the people who might have ascribed themselves to those crazy notions, in this case Ether or upwards rising Earth, are still just normie people that happen to have been caught in that crossfire. But when they're not showing themselves to want to proactively work against you, and they're tentatively saying, oh, but by the way, I do actually think Earth is rising up, you're like, you're not saying that because you want both barrels from me. You're acknowledging yourself and maybe acknowledging your flaws that you may you've got. I don't know. But the ultimate reality is that they're around us, aren't they? And they're not trying to work against us. They're not trying to piss in our face either. So you go, okay, good. Let's see what we can do. Maybe with a bit of unity, even where there is differences, but not people proactively working against us, for God's sake. We can actually make some strides. We might actually make something happen. Who knows? Worth entertaining, in my opinion. Been a good show.
That guy, RJ Shine, said something about setting up a podcast where he could join. I don't know if he just wants to join the show now or...
People can always join. The show's been open for about 7 years with the same methodology of joining. So if you did want to join, feel free. There's a link below this video, but I'm going to round out at this point. So if indeed you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Hit me up on PayPal, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.